Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our special show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about the development in Northeast, specifically the infrastructure development in the northeastern region of India. Now, the northeastern region of India comprises 8 states: Assam, Nagaland, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Tripura and Sikkim. According to 2011 census, this area comprises 3.78% of our country's population, and it also comprises approximately 7.98% of a country's area, including 5,483 kilometers of India's international borders. Now, these 8 states also constitute 3.37% of country's total agricultural land holding and 34.5% of the total bamboo-bearing area in the country. Now, challenges being faced by the northeastern region have been assessed through various studies, reports submitted by different committees, commissions and task forces, etc., appointed from time to time by various governments. Now, these assessments have broadly identified various measures to bridge the infrastructural gaps and remove the backlog in basic minimum services in northeastern states that include connecting Northeast with the rest of India and the world through rail, road, water and air connectivity, opening new trade and business opportunities by improving the banking sector and giving incentive to industry sector, etc. Several initiatives have been undertaken by the central government in the past few years to develop Northeast region holistically for improving basic infrastructure and providing the road, rail, water, telecom and air connectivity in the region. Today, we will discuss and analyze all these challenges and initiatives taken for infrastructure development in the northeastern region of our country. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Mr. R.R. Rashmi is joining us. He is former Chief Secretary from Manipur. We are also joined by Dr. Vishwapati Tripathi, former Secretary, Ministry of Shipping, Government of India, and Dr. Subhash Chand is also joining us. He's Principal Scientist at CRI, that is Central Road Research Institute of India. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Sansad Television. Let me begin with you, Mr. Rashmi, and let's first start by identifying or looking at those challenges which have been assessed by various committees, various reports, as I was pointing out. But if you could, put them in focus again and tell us what are the key elements which need to be tackled, key challenges which needs to be find solutions to when we are talking about development and specifically infrastructure development in northeastern region.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me on your show. You know, Northeast is a multitude of states and multitude of different communities and different populations across several hilly states. So one of the distinguishing characteristic of the Northeast is that it's a melting pot. It's a combination of different communities with different cultures, different historical backgrounds. So it offers tremendous amount of complexity in the society. So this is both its challenge as well as its advantage in a sense. But this region of the country has generally been not looked after well. You exclude Assam. Assam is, of course, a different category in itself. It is the largest state in the whole of Northeast, and it is the most populous state. But if you exclude Assam, which has large plain lands, all of them are hilly, mostly hilly states. And the primary difficulty with these hill states is that the connectivity is very poor. And that comes in the way of their full-scale integration into the rest of the country. Okay. After partition was another major tragedy, which excluded large parts of this area from the mainland. And that accentuated the problems of connectivity. So that the infrastructure, as you said, is backward. But the primary the consequence of this is that it is not well connected with the rest. In the recent years, there has been large improvement. Okay. But apart from the geographical connectivity, the other major problem which several studies have pointed out is the lack of financial resources and industrialization in this region. And naturally, you cannot industrialize at the same scale in the same manner as you do in the rest of the country. So the hill states have their own typical topography. You can't replicate the same models of development and industrialization here, but it has very rich in horticulture and forestry resources.
Okay.
Based on these resources, at least a new development model could have been initiated here. This has not happened.
Okay.
So these are the two primary problems which we have faced.
Okay, definitely. You pointed that out, right, Mr. Rashmi, in terms of, geographical infrastructure or geographical connectivity between the states and obviously, between these 8 states and the mainland, obviously being one of the major issue there. But, money and finance, you spoke about, that also seemingly is now being taken care of slowly when we're looking at the budgetary allocation. There is a separate ministry also for, quite a few years now for the development of Northeastern region. We'll come to that also. But, with the connectivity part, that brings me to Dr. Trivedi. Dr. Trivedi, connectivity is not just limited to road, rail, or air connectivity as well. Waterways play a very important role, and specifically when we are looking at the Northeastern region, it does have a very, crucial role to play.
Thank you, Mr. Daya. I totally agree with you, and I totally agree with Mr. Rashmi about the terrain and the difficulties of connectivity. As far as the infrastructure is concerned, well, there are two main components to this kind of infrastructure. But let me just focus more on waterways given the time limitation. Two major national waterways which touch the Northeast. One is the Barak River system, and the other one is National Waterway 2, which is the Brahmaputra River. They all join at some point. They flow into into the Bay of Bengal. But the important thing, which I've, as chairman of Waterways Authority and Secretary Shipping Ministry, Ports Ministry, Waterways Ministry, my insistence has always been that we must use the Bangladesh protocol route for shortening the distances. I mean, instead of taking everything over the Chicken Neck area into the east, we must crisscross through the Bangladesh waterway system.
Okay.
And you will be surprised that India does support the waterway system by an annual grant of something like 10 billion takas every year. That is to keep the waterways in the Padma River, which is what they call the Ganges in Bangladesh side, and to maintain the least available depth on those waterways.
Okay.
And there is a fair amount of business that goes on, but I think it is not yet totally exploiting the potential.
Okay.
We can actually transport the entire PDS, the public distribution system material, through the waterway route. But we need to have a very big role in the or connectivity via the Bangladesh protocol route, which is touching the Barak River system on this side and the Sadia on the north of Bangladesh. But if we were to able to do this very effectively, of course, we do a lot in terms of keeping it cleaned, making small ports.
Okay.
That said, let me just add, another big attempt by the government to connect the water through the water, which is a very non-polluting and is not the same as road and rail, is a port that we have built in Myanmar on the borders called Sitwe Port.
Okay.
Sitwe Port is expected to be operational. We even give barges on a grant from MEA to connect to the south of these 8 states. I think the last border would be the Mizoram border, and that would be connected through other such rivers.
Okay.
But all this is in the pipeline, and I think if the current stress and the interest in the waterways of the Northeast is continued, I'm pretty sure not just the infrastructure, but also the trade would develop as infrastructure.
Indeed. That's quite an elaborate, analysis of the importance of waterways there, Dr. Trivedi, and how it can be utilized further. Let's also look at the other part of the geographical connectivity, something which all of us are very familiar with and which is very crucial, and which again is one of the areas where a lot needs to be done in the northeastern region, that is the road connectivity. Dr. Chand, I'd like to bring you in here. Where do we stand in terms of road connectivity when we're talking about northeastern region, and what is it that is being done on the ground to ensure that those challenges are taken care of? Because ultimately, once the geographical connectivity is taken care of, rest of the infrastructural development will follow automatically.
Yeah, thank you very much. I definitely agree with Lakshmiji and Shobhatiji, Trivedi ji. There are many challenges in Northeast area, particularly due to hill regions, because these states are of different geographical parameters. They have their inherent challenges. There are so many challenges to develop infrastructure, particularly the road connectivity in this area. Many new projects have been taken by Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. It is of the order of more than 160 projects have been taken up in the northeastern region, wherein about 50 projects are there in the Arunachal Pradesh itself. So that will definitely give a boom to the road infrastructure and road connectivity to the region. And road connectivity is the basic connectivity to boom the economy and connect the people with the mainstream and economic activities. So major problem is the particular that hill region. Because of heavy rainfall in these regions, landslides do occur. And these regions are located in Himalayan region. And there are very young range of mountains. It has different challenges.
Okay.
And that too, the soil strata and kind of geographical parameters are so different that you need to actually reinvent some of the things, or some of the conventional road construction methods will not be so much effective. So you have to always meet with these challenges. And it is a humongous task, but never the government of India have taken the initiative. We are going with great pace, and definitely that gap is going to be building very soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go back to Mr. Rashmi. Mr. Rashmi, in your first response, you made two very important points. One is the issue of finances. The second is a different development model, keeping in focus the key aspects of each of these states. For example, one of the states might be doing good in horticulture. The other state might be doing good in some other product out there. Now, this works. The question is, how does it work? Does it work both ways, that it also ensures that these states have enough funds to sustain that infrastructure which has been put in place? Because you also need to maintain the infra which is once put in place by different agencies.
Yes. In fact, I see maintenance of the assets and the infrastructure that we create has to be ultimately left to the state government and the local communities. It cannot be done. It cannot be a top-down approach all the time. So central government might be willing to invest in development of the infrastructure or providing resources to the local communities. But ultimately, the communities have to be enabled and capacitated to fend for themselves over a period of time. And this has started happening. In fact, Mizoram is a good example, a shining example of the people becoming enlightened and educated and becoming a little prosperous so that they can take care of their own resources. There is a similar development even in Manipur. Assam is a very good example of having shown leadership in many fields. In fact, all the states, as you might see, that they are doing very well on the social indicators. Human Development Index indices are by and large better than the rest of the country in the northeastern states. So the question is, what kind of support we can provide them? There are a number of flagship programs which government is implementing. But what I would suggest that we need to focus on the key capabilities of these states. And each state, you rightly noticed, has a distinct capability. Let me take example of Manipur, with which I am familiar.
Okay.
The core competence of Manipur is its younger generation, which is skilled, highly skilled, and better educated. So we need to utilize their services and their forestry resources. So based on forestry resources, bamboo resources, for example, we can generate large income for these people. Bamboo is a versatile material which can be used for construction, which can be used for producing biofuels. We can promote all kinds of handicrafts and industries. So we can do this in Manipur, we can do this in Nagaland, we can do this in Arunachal. So this is possible. So we simply have to identify the key forestry resource in each state, and based on that, we have to develop a developmental model and enable the communities to do that. Give them ideas, give them hold their hands. So this is happening. But ultimately, I think we have to invest in the human capital. The younger generation in the Northeast is, I would say, in terms of education and their ability to display the educational competence is higher than the rest of the country. We should utilize that potential.
Okay. Dr. Trivedi, would you agree with what Mr. Rashmi is pointing out there, that the need is to invest in human capital, in enhancing the unique capabilities of each of these states, and this will in turn augment the push on the infrastructure projects there, on ensuring connectivity, be it through roads, railways, waterways, or even telecom connectivity. All this geographical, infrastructure which is being put in place will eventually work once what Mr. Rashmi is pointing out, that also is working in tandem with the infra projects.
I think I agree with Mr. Rashmi. I couldn't agree more with him. But we must also realize that it's not that we've not done anything in the last 50 years. Lots of things have been done. Coming to, he actually touched upon a very dear subject of mine, transportation of bamboo from the Northeast to the paper mills of the Hindustan Paper Corporation mill. This project, you see, at the end of the day, it is the value addition of the product that generates the demand and the price. Now, if the bamboo producers in the Northeast are compensated and remunerated duly, considering the rise in the cost of maintenance and production of bamboo, let's say, the demand can only be generated through these bigger projects. Now, Hindustan Paper Corporation, which has, I think, a few plants on that side, they have already been actually transporting, but now over the years it's stopped for some reason, on the waterways. The bamboo goes and used to go on waterways. And it still can. It's not that it's impossible. But except that we don't have the barges to carry them, we don't have economical. Now, if you put it on a small barge, it's very uneconomical. The diesel consumption probably is far more expensive on a smaller barge. You need a better designed, flatter barge with enough efficiency, even to the extent of a CNG. And that's also thought of bringing in CNG. And I know what is the LNG Petronet, they have even explored in terms of spending some of their CSR money in generating CNG filling stations along the
waterway route,
Ganges, and also National Waterway 2. So All these things are happening.
Okay.
But I think we need to, one of the things I keep saying, I'll just take half a minute.
Please carry on, Dr. Trivedi.
If you start a bus service from, let's say, Vasant Vihar to Connaught Place, the first few buses, first few weeks, the bus will go empty. But when people realize that the bus is a stable service, they'll start hopping onto it and using it. The same is true about who is to bell the cat, who is to run the first few months of cargo with less load between, let's say, one spot and the other spot. And if that service is started and it's a stable scheduled service, now this is what we call typically in the economics, we call it the market failure. Now, the only other person who can do it is the government.
Indeed.
Now, government through the Inland Waterways Authority of India has actually now bought some barges which they will run on a scheduled service, which generates confidence that, okay, our bamboo will not rot if you bring to the small port, and it will definitely be picked up and taken to the mill. That kind of a stable environmental, transportational facility has to be there.
Okay.
These are operational issues. You may have a port to send off, you may have a barge to carry it, and you have a port to receive. But the service must run efficient. And between the government and the private sector, somewhere these things need to be sorted out. And I think the government is working on it.
Indeed, both the government and the private sector will have to, come together there, as you're pointing out, Dr. Trivedi. And that's a wonderful explanation of how things can work on the ground. And since you spoke about use of, new ideas or newer technologies, Dr. Chand, if we are talking about the highway sector, the construction of roads in the northeastern region, what is it that is being deployed by the government agencies in terms of tackling those challenges? Because it's a unique topography, it's a unique geographical situation encountered by these agencies almost say every 50 kilometers.
Yes, as you know, there are a variety of challenges. That's why actually government is coming up with the new material, and particularly local material is being utilized to fill the gap between the demand and the supply, and to make the roads viable and to make them serviceable all around the year. Because there is a different kind of seasons wherein you have different requirements, and if local material are not available, it is very, very difficult to transport the material from far off stations to these states. That's why actually the use for stabilization of the soils with the help of local material like bamboo, geogridding, and even use of plastic is being made use of. And on the recent developments, some development have taken place wherein you can use the cold mix technology, wherein you can take care of the demand of the very cold places like Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, and in the border area. Wherein you have to maintain the road and have to keep it always ready for use for the transportation of goods and people. And this transportation has to be actually integrated.
Indeed.
Yeah, please.
Indeed, you're right there.
On the railway front.
Yes, Dr. Chand, please conclude.
Yeah, I'm telling that only road cannot make it integrated transportation for that, because you know that for transportation need there are a lot of mineral resources in the northeast, like coal and petroleum products are there. Because of a gap in the transportation, they are not being exploited. Like in many economic activities, like tourism activity, they do also get affected in the bad weathers, particularly during the rain weathers, because of landslides and all that, and that heavy material transportation definitely require connectivity with the railways. So definitely every capital has to be connected with the railway, and And ministry and government is very serious about that.
Indeed,
Prime
indeed,
Minister
Dr.
Modi
Chand,
has announced
that's a very valid point which you're mentioning out there, that the integrated transportation system in the northeastern region is the key to several problems which are being faced by the region, and also exploitation of resources. That's one part, but also enhancing the capabilities and making the states financially capable as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Chand, Mr. Rashmi, as well as Dr. Trivedi, for sharing your views and insight with us and our viewers on this key important aspect when we are looking at our country and the development. The northeastern region is a jewel there, and a lot of possibilities, a lot of opportunities, a lot of work being done. Obviously, there are challenges which are being tackled to ensure the development of infrastructure in all aspects, not only connectivity, the geographical connectivity via rail, road or air, on waterways as well, but also telecom connectivity, focus on human capital as well, and enhancing the capacity, as our guests were pointing out. We'll come back again tomorrow with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Sansad Television. Thank you.